I'm gonna be honest. Like I'm great that I am associated with such successful individuals. Like I'm so proud of them, so happy that they're doing what they're doing. But sometimes looking at that can be, it can bring you down a little bit. Or sometimes you go on Instagram and, the guys that you played with in college throughout your entire career, some of them get drafted, some of them go pro, some of them sign, or some stay or transfer to another school. And I think comparison is the thief of joy. And I think that's where I was at. And I don't know what the algorithm was thinking, but I was on TikTok and I saw it and I'm like, I just need to write this down and look back at it as the months progress. So here we are. It's March, 2 months later, and I remember that feeling, and I feel like I needed to write that down and I needed to share that and kind of just touch on it a little bit. I just truly think that comparison will rob you of the surplus amount of joy that's already in your life.
Comparison is a thief of joy because joy is found through authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
I think something I replied to that specifically, I was listening to Chris Williamson talking to Rogan when I replied to you, and he said something similar. Jealousy is a stupid emotion to have because you have no idea what price the person had to pay for their skills that you admire. Mm-hmm. Sonder is all about the realization that people live a life just as complex as yours. Yet you only get to judge and compare yourself to a tiny snippet of it.
Yeah.
You don't get to pick and choose what you do and don't like about a person. It's a onesie, not a multi-piece outfit.
I love that.
People think that by admiring some person, they can just have what they have in that specific area. No, there's so much that goes on behind that, and it's a trade-off. You were mentioning some great names and great athletes. Some of them don't really have a great social life. And honestly, many of them are divorced. And I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing, but that's not a very happy moment of your life most of the times.
Yeah.
That's not something you strive for. You don't say, oh, I get married because I want to get divorced someday. That's not something that happens. That's not the end goal. Yeah. Yet it still happens because of a trade-off. And it has to do with your priorities. Some people prioritize their personal and professional life over their family and social life, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. That's up to everyone.
Yeah.
But it's not fair to say, I want this, but I don't want everything else that comes along with the package. It's just a onesie. It's not a multi-piece suit.
Yeah.
And people think about it that way. And it reminds me actually of, have you ever read The Great Gatsby?
A long, long time ago, probably beginning of high school.
The two opening lines of The Great Gatsby. In my younger and more vulnerable years, my father gave me a piece of advice that I've been turning over in my mind ever since. Whenever you feel like criticizing anyone, he told me, just remember that all the people in this world haven't had the advantages that you've had.
Mm-hmm.
How does that tie in with Sonder?
Can you read that one more time?
In my younger and more vulnerable years, my father gave me some advice that I've been turning over in my mind ever since. Whenever you feel like criticizing anyone, he told me, just remember that all the people in this world haven't had the advantages that you've had.
Yeah, I think that just kind of goes back to the original point that no one truly knows what's been sacrificed or opportunities that others have. You only know as much as someone's willing to share. That's why I go back to the thing about comparison and jealousies. You really don't know what they did to be where they're at, what they struggled through. The amount of people that I've talked to, years later, they're like, hey, this person passed away in my life and I had no idea, and I thought that they were fine, and they had some success that year, or you truly don't know what's happening. So to point your finger at someone and bash on them, or point your finger at them and be like, they're so great, I could never be them, you got to really take a step back and think they're just as human as you are, and things don't always go right, and sometimes things go great, and you just have to truly accept that. Again, I think that again goes back to a bigger thing about faith and where you stand in the universe or spiritually. But I think that was a great quote that you brought up to kind of tie that all together.
Yeah, it reminds me also of Ted Lasso's "Be curious, not judgmental," and it's little things like that make up life. So
yeah.